Can you really teach a high school student without textbooks these days? Well, we're going to find out. I have a rising ninth grader, and today I want to share some of the highlights from her upcoming school year. Hello and welcome back to Wholehearted Homemaking. My name is Heather, and today I wanted to share a little insight into my rising ninth grader. My oldest will be a high schooler, and I'm in denial about that to an extent. But today I wanted to share with you some of her curriculum choices as we do our own DIY customized Charlotte Mason style curriculum for each of our students. You can see some of my previous videos for different grade levels throughout the years. Now I have several choices here for you today, but I do not have all of them. Please go to the blog, which is linked below if you want to see an extensive list of all the different items. I'm just going to give you some quick highlights of a couple of different subjects. And first up and foremost is going to be history, because as many of you who may or may not know, in Charlotte Mason, we do tend to kind of central some of our learning around the history because we want to make sure it's done thoroughly. And so for this particular year, our entire family will be studying the 19th century. And so with that, we as a family have some history spines that we are following. This particular child does not like her history spines to be family style learning. And so I have tried to, over the past few years, tried to have her own, and that has worked really well for her. So today I wanted to share all of her history spines. She has several because she is a voracious reader and capable of doing this. If you have a child who is not a voracious, quick reader, I would not assign all these books, but I like to give it to her because I get a couple different worldview perspectives. So first up, this is one of her spines, and this is probably about as close to a textbook as you're going to get besides some of her language arts subjects. But this is The Basic History of United States by Clarence B. Carson. She read the first volume and part of volume 2 last year and did really well. This is not her favorite, but it does do a quick synopsis to get you through many years and a lot of information. And so she will be reading this and this one this year, and I just spaced those out as needed. They are short, quick chapters that give you an overview of American history from kind of a libertarian point of view. Yeah, that just is what it is. Every history book is going to have some kind of world view. Next up is Heaven Rescue Land, which is going to give you the Christian perspective. And I accidentally grabbed volume 1. She's actually going to be reading volume 2 of this particular series, which is a blue book. Frankly, my mother-in-law gave it to me, and it does a very good overview. If I had to choose between the two, I would probably choose only this one. But because she is a quick reader and I want her to go a little more in depth, she's doing 2 U.S. history spines, and that's simply because she can do it quickly and it gives her a better broad view. Then we also have multiple history streams. So she'll also be doing world history, and for that, she will be using much to her dismay, Churchill's History of the English-Speaking Peoples, Book 4. She is not a huge fan of Churchill. We read the first volume a couple of years ago, and it was not her favorite. However, it does give a good overview of some of the world history, and it is hard to find that here in America in a non-textbook form. I actually really love Churchill and how he writes. And so we will be using portions of this. She will not be reading all of this for history this year, but so that will be her world history spine. And last but not least, my older students, 4th grade and up, all have also an ancient stream that they will follow. And she will be using The Roman Way by Edith Hamilton. And frankly, I know nothing about this, but I've heard about it from many, many resources that it is wonderful. Again, we will probably only do portions of it as I pre-read and note which ones we want to cover. So that's her history spines. Now, we have a history spine that covers the gamut. It tries to catch everything. So you're only getting short snippets of all the different history and the different cycles. So she would do in 1 week probably a chapter or 2 from each of those spines. Along with that, we have history biographies as well as church history biographies, and then historical fiction that also helps to paint that picture of what that century is like. Now, I don't have any of my biographies here, but please go to the blog because I have Several. Biographies are the crux of our homeschool. We have our spines that get us through the whole century, but the biographies are what give us the picture of what the life is really like during that century. And for each child, I have listed American biographies, world biographies, and ancient, no, I don't think I have any ancient biographies, but I have church biographies. So you'll want to go check those out because it does run a gamut. I can tell you she will be doing for all my kids, we'll be doing the Judsons, Adoniram and Ann Judson, John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, and I can't remember the other one, George Mueller. For church history, they will all be reading an Abraham Lincoln biography. They will all be reading about Harriet Tubman or another person of color. And then there are several other biographies that I cannot remember off the top of my head. I did not bring them because it's literally like 12 different biographies for the school year. So please go to the blog to check that out. Then along with that, we have some historical fiction that helps to paint the picture. And we try to be careful about what we choose. And I do try to pre-read all of these, especially for my high school student. And I am still in the process, so forgive me if I have to update later and say, whoops, we're not doing it. But I brought two that I know I'm going to be reading because my husband who went to Christian school read it. First, it's going to be the Scarlet Pimpernel. She has been begging to learn more about French Revolution, which our whole family will study a little bit at the beginning of the school year. And so she will be reading this particular book. I toyed with the idea of Les Mis and also Count of Monte Cristo, but frankly, those two I've only read in portion, and I'm just not, my daughter's only 14, and I don't think that those topics that are covered in those books are really something that she is quite ready for. So she will be reading Scarlet Pimpernel, is one of her world historical fictions. She also has American historical fictions, which I also didn't bring. And then she has only one ancient historical fiction, and that is Ben-Hur. She will be reading through this book, and I have just about finished this, and it is my first time through, and it is wonderful. Not at all like the movie, especially not the newer one, but I highly recommend it. And I think it's great if you can read it and then maybe watch the movie and discuss what's different and why it's different. You might see a little bit of a portrait of what Hollywood does with Christian writing. And I highly recommend this to be if you're trying to get an ancient Rome kind of context. I really love it. I think she will enjoy it. Also, it is longer. And so we're just going to space it out throughout the year. There are like 8 units or books within it, and then several chapters within each one. And so we're just going to pace that out for the whole year because I don't know that we need a lot of other things set in Rome. All right, next up, I wanted to share her literature choices. We have several literature books. There are so many good ones. 2 that I know she will be reading. One is Pride and Prejudice. Another is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I have not read this since high school. I read this a couple years ago. I read it many times. Both she, I think, will find interesting and also frustrating. And that's okay because we want to challenge her a little bit. And so these will be both perfect for the 14-year-old rising 9th grader. All right, next up, what I wanted to share was science. We use Sabbath Mood Homeschool, and I've shared about this before, and I will make a video in more detail in the future. She will be using their biology. Now, this is not necessarily the rotation that they recommend, but it is what my husband and I have decided for her. She will spend the entire year on biology, which is not Charlotte Mason-y. They rotate. Anyways, I digress. But we will be using Anatomy Part 1, and then Part 2, and then Origins. So I have printed it out, bound it for her, and then marked what weeks it is. I don't normally mark the weeks, but she asked for a little help keeping up with it. This first section has no dissection. Part 2 does have dissection, so she's really looking forward to that. We'll see how that goes. And the first section really kind of goes along with the basics of biology and anatomy. And so there's not a lot that I'm concerned about in this particular one. However, the text that they use is The Body by Bill Bryson. And I've already started reading it, and it's wonderful, but it is a secular book. It is not for children. It is just a regular adult book, I guess you would say. And so there are portions that I do not want my child to read yet, and there are some images that I don't want my child to see. And so I will simply be pre-reading and going through that. Because we are Christians, we are going to be coupling this and this with this resource from the Institute for Creation Research. And that's because, again, I want to pull in that biblical worldview. I don't mind reading secular things. I think it's necessary. However, I don't want to ignore biblical worldview. So we have this and also the design and complexity of the cell. Both are ICR resources. She will not be reading them entirety. She will be reading portions as they correlate with her units. And I will be going through that this summer to prepare it for her. The next thing is science biographies. All of my kids read science biographies. We started this a few years ago, and it actually became one of the favorite parts of their books each year. And so she has several that are out of print. If you go to Sabbath Moon, they have a list of biographies. All of my kids are reading about Isaac Newton, Michael Faraday, and George Washington Carver. This particular student is going to read about Isaac Newton because she's never done that before. And then she is also going to read about Michael Faraday, but then I may change up who she does for her third one because she does like the more biology, medical focus, and really does want to enter that kind of world for an occupation. At least that's what she thinks for now. So we're going to run with that. But these books are out of print and exorbitant cost. So praise the Lord, our library has them, and we will be borrowing them from there. They are rather short biographies, so I'm not worried about borrowing them from the library and having her finish it in time. But these are by Harry Sutton. He also has a Michael Faraday one, which is really good. And so she'll be using those. And then they're, like I said, the anatomy book, all of that goes with that. And then when she gets to origins, she will have another text, which I have not looked into because that is third term. Last thing I wanted to share, like I said, on the blog, I have this all written out in detail, and I will be coming back to update as possible, especially with science. I hope to come back at the end of the first semester and let you know how all that went and give a review because Sabbath Moon is missing a lot of reviews, and we love them. The last thing I'm going to share is actual textbooks. So we have very few textbooks in our home that we use. And for the ones that we do use textbooks, it is math, foreign language, and language arts like grammar. So this child, whenever my children get to high school, our goal has always been that they can choose their own language of study. She has chosen German. So we're going to do German in 10 minutes a day. Is this Charlotte Mason? No. Is it something that I feel is doable and possible for us? Yes. And so we will be doing this for this year. If she really likes it, then we will figure something out for next. But for now, she will be doing this in German. We also have decided to drop Latin from our family. It is just not working out for us. It was a very good experiment and helpful for me, but we won't be doing Latin. However, I do want my kids to know those Latin and Greek roots. I feel like those are vital to understanding vocabulary and language. And so my younger children have a root study that we're going to be doing, and I've shared about that previously. This student will be doing Roots of English, and then following this, the Book of Roots. These are from Memoria Press, and this is a workbook study, but it's going to go through those different roots. This particular child did really well with Latina Cristiana from Memoria Press, which is a primary Latin program, and she does really well with that. So I know that this particular format will work well for her. And so she will be doing this to kind of build up those Latin and Greek roots in her words. And last but not least, we will be continuing with our mother tongue. Ambleside Online, I think, has this just for middle school, but we are really slow going through it because I'm really bad at grammar. I did all advanced placement classes. I went to college and I am terrible at grammar and I do not know the rules. And so I do this along with her and we do it as a partner study, and sometimes she gets to ask me the questions. Sometimes it's me asking her. And it has been a really good thing for both of us to commiserate over. She will finish this year, and so I do have another selection that I found online from Ambleside Online. I believe it's called Traditional English Sentences. I haven't downloaded it all the way, or I've downloaded it but not printed, and we will use that as a supplement afterwards. We will also be focusing more on writing and composition this year, and so those are not materials I have. We're going to take her written narrations and then we're going to tweak them and work through them using a lot of the skills that Karen Glass shares in Know and Tell. And so that is my sight into my rising freshman. That just sounds insane. But if you have any questions or would like to know more about my choices and how we came about it, please leave a comment below. I would be happy to talk to you through things, or visit the blog where I have it all outlined. And make sure you check back, because I will be updating throughout the year to show what is going well, what is not, and really what is working for our family in general. So make sure you check back regularly, because I do plan to update and give reviews as we go through these various subjects. Thank you so much for watching. Let us go forth and strive to serve our families in the Lord wholeheartedly.